It's Emma from the Chapter House, and I want to say thank you for joining us. Today we kick off our new series, Give an Elder a Mic, where we interview different elders from different communities and learn more about their lives, their work, and teachings. And today I'm honored to welcome one of my biggest influences and someone that I admire greatly, and one of the Chapter House's biggest supporters, my dad, Tony Robbins. To interview him today as well, I'm joined by my sister, Isabella Robbins, who's my collaborator and close friend, and is a scholar, a curator, sometimes tribal employee for the Navajo Nation, sister, daughter, and res girl. And she's currently in her second year studying at Yale in a PhD program in the History of Art department, where she's doing global contemporary Indigenous art studies. She's also the Chapter House's board secretary, and she'll be interviewing my dad, or Tony, with me. Izzy, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our beloved guest, Tony Robbins. Dad to us is a Diné elder, father, Che, fisherman, Little League coach, music lover, and much, much more from Cameron, Arizona on the Navajo Nation. As a community leader and organizer, environmentalist, and educator, he has been one of the biggest inspirations for the founding of the Chapter House. As the natural resource manager for the Western Agency of the Navajo Nation, one of his recent accomplishments has been completing a huge project related to the former Bennett Freeze area, which will help many, many Navajo families living in the area, which maybe he'll talk about more a little later. Hi, Dad. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey, good to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, Dad. So before we get into our interview, I kind of just wanted to give you a moment, if there's anything that you wanted to add on to your bio or introduce yourself further. I understand that you're joining us from a hilltop there to get some internet service, so thank you so much. But I'll let you take it away, and then I'll jump in with our questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm out here, out on the res, out by my home, Hogan, on a hilltop where I like to sit because it's got a nice view all the way around. Plus, I get good internet reception here. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Like to introduce myself as you were, as the daughters introduced me. I'm Tony Robbins. I am in the Navajo way. Ashka Hatsoinshle do na pedin abashin tenja kindash nada do tedishkin che. Could ego ya the nenshle or the could ashkaya do the shne out Yeah, just introduce myself in Navajo, my clans, and out here so that people, those Navajos that are out there listening, will recognize. Hopefully, we're figure out how we're related to each other. So, anyway, if not, you can just call me Che, and I'll be happy with that.
And for those of you who don't know, Che is grandfather. So he is a Che, as was mentioned. So Dad, I'm really glad to see you here. Obviously, you and I communicate a lot, and especially over the past few months, we've been communicating a lot over video. I know our new thing is Hype or House Party, where we've been doing some drawing and games. So I know everybody's dealing with COVID in a different way. I just wanted to let our viewers know that generally I live part of the time with my dad on the Navajo Nation in Tuba City, because of the work that I do with the Water Access Project, also known as the Navajo Water Project. And Dad, you and I have a lot of time to sit together and talk. And, you know, those of you may know that my background is actually in the arts, and now I'm doing things like the Water Project on the res. And you and I talk a lot about combining those two worlds of human rights and community art centers, and making sure that Indigenous peoples, both on and off res, have those opportunities. So I just really want to point out that because of a lot of these long convos, we've been able to work out how the Chapter House is going to form and where we're going with that. But yeah, Dad, I haven't seen you since October because things on the Navajo Nation and in Los Angeles or on Tongva land where I am now are pretty serious with the virus. And I know it's been very impactful for you and many of our community members. And I just sort of wanted to start out with that question. How has COVID changed your life over the past 10 months? And I wanted to hear a little bit about what you've been doing outside of things like Zoom calls or shifting your life when it comes to traditional ways, and how you've been a Che, as we just mentioned.
Okay, well, as you all know, I think COVID has affected all of us in our lives in one way or another. And same with myself. I had have to get used to wearing a mask all the time, and when I go out and about, being careful, being 6 feet from everybody, and not and all those things. It took a while to get used to it. I look at it as like, every time you get in a vehicle, you have to put your seatbelt on, and after a while, it becomes a habit. And I think, for me, and wearing a mask and maintaining, social distance and things like that has become a habit. And I think that we'll still have to continue to do those things. I did get my COVID vaccine shot this past Wednesday, and I got the Pfizer version of it, so I'll get my booster in about another week or so. So hopefully that will protect me a lot more. And so those are some things that I'm dealing with at the moment. But being out here in the res, got a lot of open space. I like, generally I like being out in nature, so that's been kind of easy for me to do because I do like to just come out here and hang out here, do a little bit of this and that, and stay away from populated areas. So it's been not too difficult for me. But at the same time, I like to go to Flagstaff and to Twin Arrows, and go there, and which means being among people, and enjoy visiting with people and things like that. But those things have changed, and a lot of it is being done now over social media and things like that. So, which has forced us. This whole COVID stuff has forced us to come into a more modern way of communicating, which has been, one of those silver linings of this activity. Because it's now, I think a lot of people know how to use social media a lot better, teleconferences, video conferencing, all those things like that. And so I think it has affected our lives that way, and I think those will continue to be such. I've been in so many meetings, go to work, and every day got 2 or 3 meetings that happens every day. And it seems like my work life is just one meeting after another these days. In the past, you would go to a meeting someplace, travel an hour or two to get to your meeting spot, and meet for an hour, 2 hours, and then travel back the other way around. Spend a whole day to go to a meeting. Now, stay in your office, and you got 3 or 4 meetings going on. Sometimes you got 2 or 3 of them going on at once. So that's the current situation. Obviously, I think all of us, especially us Native Americans, we've lost a lot of good people, lost a lot of elders, a lot of lost relatives, and even this morning, I read that one of my good friends that I've been working with in the former Benefreeze area had passed away, and I was not even aware that he was sick until I heard the news. And it hits home. It it was made me very sad that we had lost this great person. He was my brother by clan, and but at the same time, we were also working together on some of these joint projects, and he was a natural resource person too. And so just to lose people like that are things that we won't be able to replace easily. And I think that's happening with our relatives, and I also another one of our medicine people that I knew had passed away this morning too. So we're not. I think he passed away a day or two, but I didn't hear about it till this morning. And just that feeling of lost every day. When you hear about people, and it's hopefully we're dealing with it in a good way, and hopefully I'm dealing with it in a good way, and the only time will tell, so anyway, for right now, I feel good. Certain amount of sadness is always there, but you do what you can to enjoy your life and make sure that you're taking care of things that you need to take care of. So life goes on, and so we just have to make those small adjustments to address those current issues, and so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
So
and thank you for sharing that. And obviously I'm sorry for your loss and our community's losses. And with that said, when we talk about traditions and COVID, what has been one thing that you've been doing that's traditional during COVID to stay safe or to help others?
Ever since I was a kid, herding sheep out here and doing certain things, got a lot of chances to go to ceremonies. My parents, I grew up in a very traditional background, traditional family. I'm an English language learner. I always remind that my kids when they tell me I'm being too Johnny or something like that, talking broken English or something. I tell them, hey, I'm an English language learner. So in that sense, I learned a lot from my parents when they were here. They shared with me a lot of their wisdom and knowledge, and then also I know my dad, did a lot of some herbalist stuff, and my mom was not very knowledgeable about herbs and things like that. So I picked up a little bit of that, and having a background in natural resources and working out here, and doing vegetation inventories and things like that. And then you looking at some of the ethnobotany, reports, and things like that, and just remembering the things that were done for me, the medicines that were used, the herbal medicines, based upon that. And so I know that in order to protect yourself, you can go out and collect some of these herbs and use them to, bless yourself, make teas and, drink them to protect yourself and to improve your um, immunity, those type of things. I've been doing that, when um, relatives or friends, kind of, need some help. And, I'll make some tea, go collect some sage, go collect some all those type of plants, and bring them back and make some teas, and share those with people who need it. So I've been doing a little bit of that, and plus, I think it helps me, remember those things and using traditional medicines to help, in the current situation. So, and I hear people saying that they do the same things, and which I think is good. In one of those um, silver linings of the current situation, is making some of our traditional practices, bringing some of those back and using it to address the current situation, which is to me a good way to do these things. And obviously we've lost a lot of medicine people too, people who were very knowledgeable about certain they did certain ceremonies, and now those are lost now because they got COVID and died. So I feel like those are some things that are occurring right now, and hopefully we're out there protecting those knowledge holders, so that we can continue to be, Navajos, continue to know those ceremonies, continue to use them. So a lot of our ceremonial lives have been put on hold because of COVID, because a lot of the ceremonies require being in close proximity to each other, being in the same hogan or same space, close. But because of the situation, a lot of those things have been put on hold. So I think once this COVID situation has been in a better situation, I kind of hope that we'll be having lots of ceremonies to address the issues that we've gone through. So kind of looking forward to that in a way.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I know it's been it's definitely something that is obviously a big issue is, losing elders and losing our traditions during COVID. And you have a really interesting background in terms of growing up traditional. And Izzy, I know you had a couple questions that you wanted to ask about that and discuss.
Yeah, I think Emma and I and our other sisters all grew up hearing these funny stories and stuff like that. And I think I'm thinking specifically of like sheep herding and boarding school, and you did the Mormon placement program, which is how you ended up living in San Diego for a while. And I just think for a lot of people, you hear sort of these like blanket stories about how those situations were bad for everybody. And that's not to say that that isn't true, but it's always interesting hearing your perspective and your stories, because it just provides a different and more nuanced perspective. So I think people, including myself and Emma today, would be interested in hearing more about your childhood, or maybe like a fun memory you have from either of those situations, any of those situations.
Well, I did grow up, out here on the res. One of my first memories is just being out here with families and things like that. We didn't have a whole lot. When you look at, I guess, the standards of the day, we were probably considered, living in poverty. But at the same time, I don't ever recall going really hungry. It seemed like my parents had always provided for us in one way or another. I don't remember, the only time I remember being hungry or being thirsty was when I was herding sheep and being out there for 3, 4, 5 hours and towards the end getting thirsty and hungry and wanting to get home to the comforts of, the Hogan, But other than that, I feel like I was, and I know my people did have, truly difficult lives, and I guess in a sense I did too. But when you're in the middle of it, living through those things, it was kind of normal. This is the way we lived. It was. I mean, I didn't know any better, I guess. But so anyway, and then I went to school. We were required. My parents were required to put us in school, and I went to preschool out here, and I went to the boarding school in Tuba City for from the what they at that time they used to call it. They didn't call it kindergarten. They used to call it beginner. It was like I was 6 years old when they put me in there, and I remember going there, being dropped off for school, and I remember being in this strange place, in a building actually, and all the kids are crying because they're missing their moms and their dads, and some for many it's probably the first time they left their parents, and it's the same as with me. But I don't remember crying, or I don't remember but I remember kind of being a little scared. I remember being sad because I knew I'd been just dropped off with strangers and things like that. So that was my first experience with being away from home and having to be sent away to school. But my dad would come pick us up every 2 weeks. He was working. Luckily, he was working. And he'd get paid. I assume he got paid like every 2 weeks, and on payday he would come to Tuba City and pick us up with my other siblings that were all going to school there. I rarely saw them because we're all in different grades and different dormitories and things like that. But so those are some things that I remember. And it was always good to see my parents come and pick you up, and but then they brought you home and I had to go herding sheep, And as I grew older, I think it was a personal decision to go into this Mormon placement program, because when you go to the boarding school when you were a kid, one of the questions your parents were asked us were, which Christian church do you want your child to be participate in? So they had a choice, Catholic or some other type of Christian, which included the Latter-day Saints, and so on. And my parents had known some of the Mormon missionaries out here, so I think that was one of the things that they knew a little bit about. So they would all put us in with the Mormons. So we ended up going to their Mormon church activities and things like that. So that's how, I learned about the placement program. And I know my sisters, my older sister, I have 3 sisters, and they're all older than me. And I had 5 younger brothers. There were 6 boys, six of us boys, and I was the oldest of the boys. So, my older sisters, I guess they decided they wanted to go on placement program, and they had signed up, or somehow convinced my parents to sign them up, and they left, and I continued to go to the boarding school. And when I was eligible, when I was 10 years old, I decided I wanted to go. I must have been 9 years old when I decided I wanted to go, because my first year I was 10 years old when I went to California. And I remember getting on this big Greyhound bus, or Continental Trailways, whatever it was, bus that we got on. And same thing, like, get on the bus and all these kids are crying for their parents, crying for their moms, everything else. And I'm just sitting there, obviously sad and afraid to go away, but knew, that I just sat there and listened to everybody else, and I was with my sisters too, my older sisters, on that trip, but still, I just went there and went to California. Luckily, I got set up with a good family, who I still keep in touch with these days, and I was there for 3 school years in California. So those were like 10, 11, and 12 years old when I was there, and I learned a lot during those times. I learned, that's when I did a lot of English immersion, learned to, be a good English speaker, got a good handle on that during that time, and I was exposed to just another world. But every year, every fall, when it was time to go back to California, it seemed to get harder for me to leave. And then finally, I just, when I was going to go back for in between my 6th and 7th grade years, I just couldn't go. So I told my parents, I don't want to go. I don't want to go back. It wasn't because I was having a bad experience. I just had a hard time leaving. So my dad tells me, well, you better call the Kirbys. The Kirbys are the family that I stayed with in California, in Poway, California. And so I made that difficult call. And I remember, crying and all that stuff, making that phone call. But they always told me, you always have a place for you here. You're always, part of our family now. So I felt good about that. And I think that was true, because that, to this day, I still, go visit them, and they're all very elderly now, the parents. But the brothers that I had there, they're still around, and keep in touch with them from time to time. So those are some things, it was, but I did learn a lot when I was there. So I came back to the res, stayed on the res, and went to Tuba City Junior High School for my 7th grade year, and did well, and went to high school in Tuba City. And so those are my, childhood memories, and my education was here, and the things that I, learned. And so that's my schooling, I guess, up to high school. So graduated from Tuba City High School. Go Warriors.
Go Warriors. Well, with that said, with mascots and everything, I appreciate you sharing that. I think, for my sisters and me, it's always really intense to hear that you left your home at age 6, and then you went to a different state and religion was involved. And so I know, for me, it's always really surprising when you kind of just drop these things and say it like it's no big deal. And I think it can be pretty emotional, thinking about that. And I know it's not necessarily for you, but, we always really appreciate you sharing that information. I guess, related to that, we said Go Warriors. You and I are both, and Izzy, alumni of Tuba City. The Padres are a very big love of yours, baseball, and I know you got that when you were in San Diego. Yep, there we go. Go Padres. And so what are some of the things that, we're talking about traditional, which I want to get back into in a second, but as a, modern Navajo, what are some of your favorite things that you want to tell us about? And again, baseball is one of them. You're always listening to like dad rock, like any other American type dad. So what is something else that we should know about you, like things that you like?
Well, I think the thing about life is, I think one of the things that we always strive for is to be happy, and I think that's some of those things that I think personally I try to strive for, put myself in places where I can enjoy myself. And I like to eat good food, I like to go to a nice restaurant, and have a good, good meal. Those are some of the pleasures of life, and which I like to do from time to time. Also like to go and like you said, go to baseball. Baseball is something that I really enjoy. I didn't as a kid. I didn't play a whole lot of baseball. I didn't play baseball at all, pretty much. But I knew the game when I went to California, to San Diego. When I was a kid, my foster parent, the Kirbys, they took us to a Padres game, and that's where when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, to me, those are like your formative years, when you really develop, certain things, certain allegiances, maybe things that you will remember for the rest of your life. And so I was in San Diego. I just happened to go to some baseball games, and I enjoyed it, and so, as I grew older, I continued to maintain, that love for baseball. I remember being out here after decided not to go back to California during this summers, during baseball season. I remember tuning in, finding the radio station from San Diego at night in the evening times, and I would listen to the games. I would listen to it on the AM radio back in the day when you could hear AM radios all over the place, that had strong signals. And I remember, looking forward to the evening when I could, find that station in California, from San Diego, Tijuana, and listen to the Padres, listen to the game. And that's how I followed them. And that was, kind of like one of those little things, out here in the res without, we had battery powered radios and things like that, and didn't have electricity or water, but that was some things that, you look forward to in the evening times, So growing up, I enjoyed reading. I remember, going to school and going to the library and checking out books. I love to read about, animals, horses and things like that, and people who lived among them. Like to read about some of the Native American stories, that most likely were probably written by non-natives. But also, I love, as I grew older, I read a lot about, history, a lot of history, historical books, especially about places during like World War II. I read a lot of books about World War II, about the war in the Pacific. I probably read every book that was ever written about the war in the Pacific. Just reading the stories about the people. Those are some things that I did, and I would come home from school, and I'd bring those books. I would going to school in Tuba City from here. It was a 45-minute bus ride, one there and back every day, and so it allowed me to, especially after school on the bus ride home, I would do my homework. So by the time I get back home, I'd basically finished my homework, so I can go out here and do my chores, chop wood or whatever, bring the sheep back in from wherever they were at, corral them up and things like that, help my parents out. So I did those things, and then afterwards, after my mom would make some dinner, and then after that, we'd sit and talk and just visit, and sometimes under the kerosene lamp, I would read. And the other thing was, I used to buy those Mad magazines, and my dad used to kind of just look at me and my parents would look at me because I'd be laughing to myself because of all the hilarious stuff that I was reading in that particular publication. And they used to kind of say, they say, "What are you laughing about? What are you reading there?" And so it's one of those things I remember my parents kind of just not completely understanding that, some of the humor that I was reading in there. But anyway, so I did a lot of reading during those times, and it possibly was an escape for me being out here not knowing, but it was good. I enjoyed reading. I read a lot, through my adolescence into my young adulthood. But lately, I haven't done a whole lot of reading because I do social media, Twitter and things like that. I read a lot of Facebook posts. Get on Instagrams, view everybody's postings and things like that. So that keeps me busy, I always, even as I travel around, I always carry books with me, just in case I catch myself someplace needing to just, maybe the battery in my phone dies or something like that, and then I'll have something to read, So, but those are things that I enjoyed. I like to do. I like to visit with people. I like to, especially, some of the older folks, listen to them, listen to their stories, and ask them questions. And I like to go out into nature. I like to take my granddaughter Wiley and go fishing, go out into the water, go in the water, and or even just go hiking around and visit these nice places and out here, and just to be outside. Those are some of the pleasures. Some of the things I like to do. I like to go to Colorado, up into the mountains, camp in the mountains, and go up there. In addition to fishing, look at all the things that are there, the mountains, and then look at all the flora that's there. Looking at plants and things like that. And so those are some things that I like to do. Um, and then I like to just go home and just watch TV sometimes. I'm not a big football fan anymore. I still follow baseball. That's if you come visit me during the summertime in the evening, there's always going to be a game on in the background. So that's like things that I do these days. In addition to all all the necessary things I have to do every day. So
Nice. Thanks for that, Dad. I got a little emotional, so I had to turn my camera off. But anyways, and in happier news, and you're talking about social media, and like, I think a lot of people really like your social media presence. You took over the Chapter House Instagram last week, and was one of our most popular sort of social media interactions. So that was cool. But I think something that I'm interested in is that you're in tune with all these like things that I think are associated with like younger Native people, like land back and hashtag not your mascot. So I think we'd be interested in hearing kind of how you navigate that as an elder, but also somebody who works for the government, and just how you grew up and stuff like that, and how do you advocate for those things while also navigating these different roles that you have.
yeah, just recently I took a training, at work. It was on intergenerational relationships. How to deal with people outside of your generation. Me being a baby boomer, and we did this little quiz. It says, what do you like to do? Basically, those boxes that say, baby boomers are like this, millennials are like this, Generation X are like this, Generation Z is like this, and certain things, that identify those various generations. And for some reason, I looking through all those, checking all those things, and I fit in more with the millennials. The things that I was talking that they asked about. I fit more with millennials, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, maybe it's because my kids, they're all millennials, in that generation, and that's probably why I trended, even though me being a baby boomer, I trended towards the millennials because I respond to what my kids are doing, and what their interests are and what their causes are, and and so I'm knowledgeable of that because you girls, the things that you guys become involved with and the things that you guys tell me about, I tell you the truth, I knew a certain amount, but once you guys, girls, it's been my kids, I've learned a lot from them. I've learned a lot from just helping them out. I've been participating with them in certain activities. So, got to know a lot of people through you girls, and your friends and relatives, or not their relatives, but friends and their relatives, and meeting other, Navajos that are going to Stanford and meeting their parents, and got to, expand my circle, and so those are some of the things that I really enjoyed, and I hope to continue to do that because I think, just the lives of and the things that my kids are getting into really bring a lot of new knowledge to me. In order to have a conversation with you girls about certain things, I have to be knowledgeable about those things sometimes, So I'll take a little time to figure out. It's a good thing that we have Google, I can always Google things, figure out what the heck was what they're talking about. What does this mean? They said something. And I'll, get on Google and figure out what they're talking about, get an idea so I can respond in a knowledgeable fashion. So in that sense, I try to keep up with current trends, and I follow a lot of native Twitter, and people there, it's just amazing at some of the knowledge that some of these people have that they put out there, and I learned a lot from those individuals, and they happen to be Native Americans from different backgrounds, and so, and that's where a lot of this stuff like issues around land back and even blood quantum discussions over blood quantum and uh, membership in different Indian nations, Native nations, those type of issues and just even the work that the artwork that is put out there, that people are doing out there. It's amazing just what you can find on there and so. Um, so that's where I've been getting a lot of my knowledge and I'm amazed at the number of Native Americans that are out there with PhDs, and not just Navajos, but just from all over um, Native America, and then First Nations of Canada, I follow some people who are just like very well educated and they put a lot of good stuff out there, which, I think helps me in my everyday life dealing with issues out here, helping uh, um, address, being knowledgeable, addressing issues, and how to go about it, it's, um, just the way it is, and you can find a lot of trash out there too, but then again, you kind of got to pick who you want to follow, and so hopefully I'm following the right people, and so it seems, so. And I look at what you girls follow too, and then follow some of those people, so kind of in a sense in um, similar circles. So
I feel like I need to follow this up here with okay, boomer, with all of those things said. I'm just kidding though. But with Dad, with all of that said, obviously being a dad and being a Che is a big part of who you are. And it's really interesting to hear how you navigate, again, being, a traditional modern Navajo. And I'm just wondering, I know that your older siblings, especially your older sisters, well, I guess you only have older sisters, everybody else is younger. But what's a teaching that you could leave us with, or viewers or listeners that you want them to know about that you've learned, and what's affected you in your life?
I think a lot of it, and probably over the last probably like 5 years or so, I've been really kind of drawn to this idea of reconciling traditional knowledge, traditional ways of doing things, traditional ceremonies with modern day. And I've come to realize that a lot of those traditional knowledge, a lot of the ceremonies, they're still relevant today, very relevant today, to help us, address some of the issues that we deal with out in the world. And so, and part of that is that, um, this how we deal with change. We all talk about change and the things that happen in this world, not just in our little worlds, but in the larger um, world, and and the things that happen out there, and how we deal with those changes that occur. And it takes me back to some of the Navajo traditional stuff about Hojonje, the beauty way, the idea of beauty way, about how one maintains that concept of Hojonje, and of that balance, that it calls for, because in a fast changing world, in order to be happy, in order to be content, you have to be able to negotiate change. We can't be set in our ways too much anymore. It seems like, we have to make adjustments. And I think that those are some things that I find very important. And I go back to traditional Navajo ways of doing things, ceremonies especially, and prayer, making offerings to things, to the natural world, and to help us deal with what happens in the world, with COVID, and the loss of a lot of our loved ones, with just, currently, a change in leadership in Washington, D.C., those type of things, and how do we make those adjustments? And, working for the BIA, I've worked for a number of different administrations now. I've been working with the BIA for going on 23 years now, and it affects me. Every 4 years, things change, and got to make adjustments. And to me, um, we just have to, in order for us to be happy, in order for us to um, move forward, we have to be able to make those changes, to make adjustments. And I think those are some things. If we can do that, if we can find whatever that is, however we deal with it, we all deal with things differently, and obviously we deal with change differently. Um, and so those are some things that I think I've come to realize, in recent times, that um, in order to be happy, you have to be able to negotiate change, um, and figure out how to make your adjustments. Sometimes you have to make quick adjustments. Sometimes you're given the luxury of, making changes over a period of time. So as you know, the way the world is today, with social media, internet, the way communication is really quick now, you have to process that stuff quickly. And I think that, and I'm sure this is the same with other Native American beliefs. Those beliefs help us deal with those situations. We talk about trauma, as Native nations, the trauma that we've gone through, generational trauma, those type of things, those things that people talk about. I think when I deal with those things, you talk about all these changes in my life. Going from being a res kid, being in the situation that I was, going to California, and then also eventually, going out to the world, going to college. I mean, by the way, I do have a college degree. I've got a bachelor's degree in biology with an emphasis in agriculture from the Southern Utah University back in the day when it was called Southern Utah State College. And my sisters, my older sisters, they all have master's degrees. Two of my sisters are work in the education systems, and my older sister, she's got a master's social work, and does social work within the Navajo Department of Workforce Development. So, my older sisters, you know, um, they're all very well educated, and me, with just a bachelor's degree, I've been able to I think do okay. But I feel like once I got in college was when my real education started. Is all my degree did was uh, help me put a foot in the door. Got in and got some jobs that I enjoyed. I really grew them and learned a lot of things. And even today, I started off as natural resource specialist, and now I'm a natural resource manager, and every day I think I learn, and I make adjustments, I make change, yeah, I'm setting, you might think that I'm setting my ways in certain aspects of my life, that brings stability to my life. But then at the same time, there's a lot of things that are out there that make a change, and so I also, that I feel like that's one of my roles today as an elder. I really didn't realize I was an elder till probably about a year or two ago. All of a sudden, people started
Till
looking
we
at
gave
me.
you a mic.
Yeah, till somebody gave me a mic, and I realized I had become an elder. And so even that took a little bit of a uh, um, getting used to it. But I was happy to take on that role once I understood a little bit of it, and probably don't completely understand it just yet, but I still feel like, hey, it's my turn to be an elder. And so I tell my kids, go out and do the things that you need to do. I will be here, and if you need me, you need to come home, out in the world, do amongst all the craziness. And if you ever need to um, find refuge, come home. And I feel like that's the way it is with a lot of our kids these days. That's what I try to maintain out here. A place for my kids, and hopefully my grandkids could seek refuge if they ever need to. But I also hope that um, some of them come back to live on the res, and carry on the work, and be here to actually be leaders, take on leadership roles out here, among the communities out here, because definitely we need it. And at least I think the jobs that I've had within the Navajo Nation and within the BIA has always been in the field, out in the field offices out here, working with the people who live out in the land. And I think through that I've grown a lot. I know a lot, and so I really do appreciate all those people who've come into my life, throughout the time I've been out here, who've taught me. And some of them through, we might have disagreed at the beginning, on how to do a certain thing, but towards the end, I realized that through those disagreements and arguments, whatever, I've learned something, so I'm always, um, out there looking at it, and that's where I tell people, yeah, I might start off as a biologist, but today I see myself more as an ecologist, because I look out and I look at the systems that are at work, the systems that are at play, not just the natural system in the natural world, but among us humans too, how we interact with each other, how we, in our communities, how we, do certain things. And I look at Navajo Nation government and how that works, and their form of government, their fundamental law that they've adopted, and things like that. And then I look at the federal government systems and how they work, and how, so through that knowledge, I'm hoping that I can be help to somebody, help to some of these younger people, so they don't have to go out and learn all this stuff all over again, to have a foundation, so anybody who's out there listening to this, and would like, just have a discussion, because, uh, that's the other parts of my job that I like, is being in my office, I get calls from all over the place, with all kinds of situations, people just want information about Navajos. Sometimes they'll want information about this or that, about out here on the res, and I just, take some time to talk to people, and some of these are just one-time occurrences, somebody calls from France and wants information on this or that, or somebody remembers an old friend of theirs from way back when they were kids, and wanting to know that, hey, they used to come out, they used to live out in Badaway Gap, they came from there, this person, or the whereabouts of these individuals. And I'll even get calls from in a sort of a sad situation, from law enforcement, social services, from different places in the world where, Native American kids are needing in situations where they're needing social services or law enforcement, because they're investigating somebody that's missing, and so those are some things that I, deal with at work, and which, you always have to be ready to answer those questions, because even growing up, and working with the communities out here, when you talk with an elders, they don't want us to know, I don't know, come back in 15 minutes or come back tomorrow, I'll tell you, I'll let you know. They want to know right now, they want your assistance right now, and they can't really, they travel an hour and a half to come see you. You can't say, hey, come back tomorrow and they'll have an answer for you, or things like that. So you have to have information for them right now. And so in a way, I guess being put in that situation has forced me to be full of information, be knowledgeable about all kinds of stuff, and not just, the traditional stuff, but Navajo ways, being out here on the land, but social systems, knowing about just how we interact with each other, things like that. So those are, I think those are some things that I learned from my job, being out here every day, working with the people, being amongst my relatives, and it's been fun. I enjoy that work. It makes me happy, and those are the fun parts of my work and my life. I enjoy putting it all out there. Sometimes in a Navajo way, if you go to somebody for a ceremony or for maybe some knowledge, you do make an offering. You say, you give it that person, here, I need your assistance. I need you to share some knowledge with me. Here's an offering. And I always tell people, the federal government pays me already. You've already paid me for my services there. So therefore, I'm willing to share that information with everybody, whoever wants, whoever needs it, So with that, if you need something, want to ask a question, that's what I'm here for, I guess, in a way.
Well, thank
Hopefully.
you. Thank
Hopefully
you for
I can impart some knowledge.
questions. No, it's been good. Thank you so much, Dad. All of that was really great, and we really appreciate your help and your support for the chapter house. So Nana Izzy, thank you both so much. And I just want to encourage everybody to follow Tony Robbins. We'll put his Instagram here. You can see it on the bottom left. If you want to get more content, also hit up his Twitter. I'm a pretty old person when it comes to the Twitter, elder there. But yeah, make sure to follow him and keep up with what he's doing. This was just a portion of his life. And again, the first of our series with Give an Elder a Mic. So thank you so much, Dad.
Thanks,
and
Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And make sure to follow the chapter house, obviously, on our Instagram, our Twitter, and check out our website. And if you didn't catch my dad's takeover of our Instagram, you can still check that out on our Instagram as well. So thank you so much. And make sure to tune in again, y'all.
Hagoshin.
Hagone.
Hit.